Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Diane Dennis. With me today is Paul O'Brien, and he has written several books. He started his company by doing something that he loved, and out of that, he received over 10 million registered members. In 2007, he sold his company for millions of dollars, and we're so happy to have him here today. He's a sought-after worldwide speaker, and his book, his latest one, Great Decisions, Perfect Timing, Cultivating Intuitive Intelligence, is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to learn a lot. This is a great time to learn what we're going to be talking about today. Thank you, Paul, so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Diane.
Absolutely. Now, in your book, it's just chock full of fascinating concepts that a lot of them are brand new to most of us. One of them that's really important, and you talk about the importance of it for success and happiness, is visionary decision making. You created a formula for visionary decision making. So can you tell the folks what that is and what they can do with it?
Well, visionary decision-making is the name of the system that I developed that combines intuition and logic around making the most important decisions in life. And it's all predicated upon the idea that decision-making is the most high-leverage human skill there is. The quality of your success and happiness in life is directly related more than anything else to the quality of the decisions that you make. And you'd think, as the only species that can visualize different possible outcomes to different choices we might make, that we would be really good at this by now.
Why are we so bad at it?
For lots of reasons. We're not only bad at it, we are terrible at it. And the latest election, I think, is good evidence of that, but that's just an editorial. We're either too emotional or we're overly analytical. We can go in one extreme or another.
Okay.
And so those are the ways that we make bad decisions. If we're too emotional, we're impulsive. If we're over-analytical, we procrastinate while we're waiting for more information.
Well, that kind of makes sense, because if you're really charged about something, if it's something you really, really want, then you're going to be using one set of skills, and another one you might be confused or afraid, and you're going to use another one. So the model or the formula for visionary decision making, what does it include?
Well, it all depends on intuition. And this is a book about cultivating intuitive intelligence, which is the subtitle of the book. The problem is that intuition is not that easy to access, especially when you need it most. Because when you need it most is when you're most upset, or you're most excited, or you're most concerned, you're under pressure. Stress is a big factor in inhibiting intuition. So I think most of us don't really understand what intuition is, or what it takes to access intuition, and really that is the key to the visionary decision-making approach, and that's really what the book is all about. Part 2 of the book is kind of a how-to on how to access intuition. So I kind of think of intuition as like the palm of your hand. Okay, the mind is the palm of your hand. Then you have these 5 senses. The 5 fingers represent the 5 senses. These are really high bandwidth channels for information. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, whatever. And then there's this dinky little 6th one that you can imagine, a little 6th antenna that's very small, and it's calibrated to a very fine signal. That's the intuition, and it's no accident that it's been called the 6th sense for 1,000 years.
Mine has a short wire. Is a short in the wire. Well, is there anything we can do to strengthen that muscle?
You know, actually, exercising it is a good idea. The problem is, it's not something you can force. You can't force yourself to have an intuitive insight when you need it most.
Especially when you want it the most in your time, because you're meditating and you go, I need this, I want this, please give me an answer, and nothing's coming.
It's more of a getting the noise out of the way process, or removing the blocks and letting intuition have the freedom to operate. You know, I have this thing in the book I call O'Brien's Law.
Yes.
And O'Brien's Law states that the stronger the feeling, the less trustworthy it is as a basis for important decision making. And this is so counter to what most people believe.
Now this makes it really hard. I mean, you just threw something in there that's a wrench, because if I want something very badly, then I'm not going to be come to the table with the right skills to learn how to do it or get what I want.
Your intuition is going to be blocked by that strong feeling, whether it's a strong feeling of fear or anger or greed or craving. It doesn't matter. Strong feelings are not a conduit for intuition. Intuition shows up as a feeling. We call it a gut feeling.
Yes, yes.
But it's more of a subtle sensation. It's a very fine signal. And so we have all this noise coming in through our senses, and then we have all of these emotional blocks, which are like containment domes over that little antenna, the strong emotions of fear and all of the stress factors and all of that. So
and all of our social conditioning.
Right. And our beliefs. Which reinforce our fears, etc. Like in the latest election, we saw this. The decision making was so emotional. I mean, the one party was taking an emotional appeal and appealing to people's greatest fears and prejudices and the beliefs behind that. And that's what swayed people, because they were swayed by their strong feelings.
Feelings, yes. And I think we saw a lot of anger. And let's talk about engineering beliefs, because it's my feeling that underneath anger is fear. But fear isn't something that's very socially accepted in today's world. So we suppress it, repress it. It's kind of our shadow. And we use anger, which is more acceptable in our culture, and then that anger overrides, obviously, intuition and cognitive thinking, good thinking skills. So you talk about engineering beliefs. Tell me about that.
Well, we all have beliefs, and where do they come from? Most of the things that we believe are beliefs that we adopted at a very young age. They might have to do with our culture or our religion or what our parents taught us. And so usually we don't really own our beliefs. We're not really responsible for what we believe. We just adopted them. And what I talk about in chapter 11 of the book, called Belief Engineering, is the fact that beliefs are just provisional operating assumptions. They're the best we can do right now, based on what we've learned, based on what we know, based on our conditioning. But we can do better. It's called learning. So learning is the process of letting beliefs change and changing our mind.
So questioning our beliefs would probably be the first step.
Very, very important to be free to question and test your beliefs. Our operating assumptions should always be subject to review and testing and upgrading, just like the apps on your smartphone. You got to upgrade them once in a while on the basis of new discoveries, on the basis of new evidence, on the basis of learning. So we have to be willing to do that. Otherwise, we have what I consider a learning disorder. Remember when George Bush was president, and some people would say, oh, he's a man of strong character because he never changes his mind. He knows what he believes and he sticks to it. I consider that to be a learning disorder. And it's good to change your mind once in a while and realize the fact that you don't know everything, you're not capable of being objective, and so we're always learning. And so in the belief engineering chapter, I'm showing people how they can do that, how they can subject their beliefs to scrutiny and possible upgrading, and how they can test new beliefs, because really beliefs are decisions. We decide what we believe. We choose what to believe. All too often we choose it subconsciously, or we chose it when we were 4 years old, and we've never questioned it since. And in fact, in some systems, ideological systems, some religions, it's a sin to question your belief.
Absolutely.
It's the devil tempting you. What a trap that is. What a closed system.
Well, also beliefs we believe our belief is our truth. So now we're dealing with the ego. We must somehow get the ego out of the way in order to question our beliefs.
Right.
So that doesn't sound like an easy job.
No. Our beliefs are our current operating assumptions, and they're very important. If you don't believe you can walk across this room, guess what? You're right.
Right.
You're not going to be able to walk across this room. So beliefs have utility. They are important. But what I'm suggesting is that if you really want to make great decisions and learn how to develop perfect timing, you have to be willing to let your beliefs evolve, and you have to become more open-minded. You have to become open to the intuition. And all of these prejudices and strong beliefs or convictions, as we call it, can really limit our ability to let go enough to allow inspiration and other intuitive insights to arise.
So getting to that creative spot, which you did when you started your business. When you started your business, the critics would have said, or the analysts would have said, that's absolutely not going to work.
Well, actually, everybody thought I was crazy.
Right.
I was an executive in the high-tech industry, and I was doing very well in a career that was going places, and I was making a lot of money. And I found I found an intersection between two things that had fascinated me as a youth. One of them was the Chinese divination system called the I Ching, and the other one was the potential of software. I discovered software in the mid-1970s, before Apple Computer even existed, and when computers, which were called mini computers, would take up half this room and have less power than my iPhone does today. And I had a friend who worked at this computer center, and we used to go over there in Eugene. It was a nonprofit, and we'd go over there in the middle of the night and smoke pot and play this game called Space War on this humongous machine. It had a tiny little monitor the size of an oscilloscope. Now, I'm not a big gamer, and I never have been, but I was just enthralled by the potential of somebody writing code and delivering an immersive experience. I thought, wow, this is like a form of wizardry. I was just completely captivated by it, and I did everything I could to get a job at that computer center. But I had no skills. I was a college dropout, and but I knew how to type. So my career in the software industry started out as a secretary.
Wow.
I became the secretary at that computer center, and then I sort of bootstrapped myself into a career as a software marketing specialist. And 15 years later, I found myself using the I Ching at work. And
I think there are a lot of folks out there that don't know what the I Ching is, and that leads into another question: is this are these tools like the I Ching, the tarot cards? Are these just fortune telling, or are they tools that you can actually use with logic to create decisions, which is what your book is based on?
That's a very good question. And when I was first introduced to the I Ching at the age of 19, when I was an undergrad at UC Berkeley, by this pretty girl, I thought, well, this is just some fortune-telling game that she wants to show me, and I
Pretty girl in bold gives you motivation.
Yeah, I was interested in her,
right?
And so I was playing along with this thing, and being a typical 19-year-old smart aleck, I was kind of making fun of it. And so I said, okay, I'll try this. And so I cast it to see. I asked some question I didn't care about, and it ignored my question, and it came back with a reading from hexagram number 4, chapter 4, which is entitled Youthful Folly. And it says, the student lacks respect for the teacher.
Whoops.
I thought, what?
Busted.
Let me try this again.
Yeah.
That's too coincidental. So then I tried it again, and this time my attitude was a little bit different. I was curious about it, I was testing it, and so I did it again, and it came back and said, questioning the sincerity of the seeker. I thought, oh my God, it's testing me. I make fun of it, it made fun of me, I tested it, and it's testing me. Then I realized what it is. It's an energetic mirror. It doesn't have anything to do with the future per se, although it can help you make better decisions by giving you a reflection on the present moment in any situation.
Of where you're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So I became very enamored of it, and I like to say, I lost the girl, but I fell in love with the I Ching.
Okay.
And so I started using it.
And a career was born,
not
eventually.
quite yet, but I started using it and letting it help me make decisions that logic can't handle. Now, I didn't, it just stimulated my intuition. And that's what these tools are. Same thing with tarot cards. They're just ways to stimulate your intuition, to think outside the box around problems that logic can't handle.
And maybe get out of your ego head.
Exactly.
And use a little creativity and let you, then you get in a playful state and you're able to then, because I love what you said about taking two ideas or two concepts and putting them together, intersecting them to make some brilliance. And there's a lot of people who have talked about that. That have done that, and those are the visionary people who create new things.
So many examples of inventions that really were an intersection of two things that already existed. And we can see that in certain forms of music. We can see that in certain forms of cuisine, like fusion cuisine, things like that, where there are these two things. Well, for me, I had two fascinations coming out of my college years. One of them was the I Ching, and the other one was the potential of software. I was having visions of multimedia in 1974. And CD-ROMs didn't exist till 1994. And so 15 years later, I was the vice president and executive of a high-tech company, and I found myself using the I Ching at work, and I thought, gosh dang it, I wish I could do this on my computer. Because it was just kind of awkward, and
yes,
I had
of course,
to find
because wasn't it a really big book?
It was a really big book. I'd have to find a private space, and it was a company full of engineers who would think I was totally nuts.
Yeah.
And so, but it was helping me maintain balance in a very brutal situation with terrible office politics. And so I was using it at work, which is something I'd never done before. And then I thought, well, I wish I could do this on the computer. And a light bulb went off, and I realized, oh, maybe that would be good.
Wow.
Maybe there's an intersection here that makes sense.
And we should tell people, because this all sounds fascinating, but people who don't know you and know what your company was. So you started Tarot.com.
Right,
which
right.
was the biggest, or the first.
I started iching.com first, and then it became Tarot.com when I added Tarot with the help of a tarot expert. And then I added astrology, and it became the world's largest astrology website. Tarot.com was our main domain name, but the company was called Visionary Networks. And then in 2007, we had 10 million registered members. We were making 10 million a year in sales, and it started to be pursued by large media companies.
So you can see how, people who do their tarot cards or astrology readings, the last thing they're thinking about is technology. So those are the two intersections: technology with this discipline.
Well, I always had this vision that technology could be used to deliver educational or even spiritual content. So I thought of what I was doing when I developed that first I Ching software, and spent my entire life savings on creating a prototype, because the company I was with could care less. So I hired a programmer and an artist, and actually created one of the first multimedia titles. And I had always thought I could apply technology to this ritual and using multimedia to create an emotional ambiance that was suitable to a meditation type experience, that I could create what I called ritual space using technology. So that was my big vision. I never expected to make any money.
Okay,
this was like the craziest idea. Everybody thought I was nuts.
But wait. You said you spent all your money, but you didn't expect to make any money. That's right where somebody would go, time out.
I know.
Because then you go, people, not you, most people would say, they would think about failure, they would think about fear, and they would get paralyzed. So what makes you different that you didn't go into that place where you just shut it off?
Well, I think the difference is that I was just in love. I was motivated by love for this fascination that I had. I was so fascinated by the idea of it and the creative freedom of doing something completely new that I couldn't help myself.
Okay.
And my peers were saying, what are you, crazy? You got a great career, you're going places. Why on earth would you do this? There's no market for this. This is the dumbest business idea ever. I Ching software? 1989?
Yeah.
That's just stupid. I said, I know, but
I
guess my motto is, wherever God drags me, I will follow.
and have a lot of hope and prayer.
Well, for the next 13 years, I, nearly starved, struggled, that whole time just to keep it intact and to keep myself, in my house and maintain a
So it wasn't an easy ride all the way, but things that are worth it aren't necessarily easy. So we're kind of coming to a close here, so I want to ask you, you have a slogan. Besides O'Brien's Law, you have a slogan.
Well, you just reminded me of one of the most common expressions in the I Ching, which sort of helped me stick with my vision and hold to it because I believed in it and I loved it so much, and that's perseverance furthers. That's the most common sentence in the I Ching. But my slogan in general, and kind of the theme of the book, Great Decisions, Perfect Timing, is take the risks that grow you.
Okay.
So that's the reason I did it, because I realized if this didn't work, I was going to be happy I did it because of the creative expression of it, because it was something that was an expression of who I was and who I cared about. It was a risk worth taking because I was going to grow from it.
Well, and you did, and great success.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so people can find your book at divination.com.
Divination.com is the website of my nonprofit. When I sold the company, I started a nonprofit called the Divination Foundation in order to give back. And also, you know what? I just want to express my appreciation for you and this show, Inspired Conversations, and for the listeners, and offer a free electronic copy of the book
Fabulous.
to anybody out there who can download it from divination.com. I set up a private web page just for this purpose.
Great, perfect.
And it's called divination.com/free book.
Okay.
So you got to write that down, /free book, because it's a private page, there's no navigation to it. And if you go there and sign up for our free newsletter, which you can unsubscribe anytime, you can download a Kindle version, an iPad version, or the PDF.
PDF.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Give
Well, thank
back.
you, Diane. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. Paul O'Brien, Great Decisions, Perfect Timing, Cultivating Intuitive Intelligence. It's a great read. I learned a lot today, and I hope you did too. I want to thank you for joining us today on Inspired Conversations. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and we'll see you again.